welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. This is my little platform where I turn struggling math students into maths masters, and I post videos as often as I can. So please subscribe, turn on the notification button if you want to know when I post any new videos. So first, apologies for the bad lighting. I have been trying to record this video the whole day, and I've been having so many tech issues, and it's nighttime now, and I'm not gonna get a chance again. I'm not gonna get another chance to make this video, so I had to use this lighting that we have right here, and even the lighting that I have is giving me issues, so this is the best I can do. But I figured this is an important video, so it'll have to do. All right, so let me tell you what we're doing in this video. In this video, we're going to look at electricity tariffs. And with electricity tariffs, there's two types of calculations. And in this video, I'm going to address both. So the two calculations is I'm going to look at if they give you the amount of units and you have to work out how much those units are going to cost. So just using the tariff system as per the normal step method. Then working backward, where they give you the amount, the total cost of the units, and you have to work back and figure out how many units was actually used. So that is what we are doing today. Also, if you are preparing for your finals, I have a revision guide, a paper 1 and paper 2 revision guide. So if you are interested in working through past papers that are organized per topic, that give you explanations and links you to videos on my YouTube channel, then you can just email mathsmonkeyhelp at gmail.com, and in the title just write revision 2025 or whatever year you are watching this video in, and I will send you an automated response with all the details on how you can get your hands on the revision guides and the cost and all of that. And yeah, you can decide if that's something that you want. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into this video. So let us jump into this lesson on electricity tariffs. Now, you know, I always like to start by looking at what are the concepts that you need to understand before we jump into these questions, okay? So the first thing I need you to understand is that prepaid electricity refers to buying electricity and then using it. So when I'm buying prepaid, that means I purchase them and I have them and then I use them. So think about the electricity box. If you've got an electricity box, you know, you have to buy the units, you put the units in, and then you use them. That's called prepaid electricity. Then we have billed electricity. Some people use billed electricity, and that just simply means that you use the electricity for the month, and then at the end of the month, you get a bill for it. Then electricity units. So you think that when you're dealing with measurement, you're dealing with centimeters and meters, and all of these things have different units. When we're working with electricity, we call it kilowatt hours, right? So that's the unit for electricity. Then tariffs are often given in cents. So in order for you to calculate the rand values, you will have to divide by 100 to convert the cents value to rand. Please pay attention to whether the information is given in cents or rands. And this last one is pay attention to whether or not the values that's given in a tariff system includes VAT or excludes VAT. And that will be given to you in the questions information. Okay, so this is our baseline understanding, and now we're going to go into a question. And why I chose this question is simply because what I like about this question is that this question tests all the different ways in which they can ask electricity tariff questions. So I'm going to take you through these questions now slowly, and then you will have an understanding on exactly how to approach this. Okay, so let's read. The Du Toit family stays in Newcastle. They decided to change the electricity from metered one to domestic prepaid. Below is a table from the Newcastle electricity tariffs for 2017 and 2018 and 2018 and 2019. Mr. Van Zyl is Du Toit's neighbor. Note, the municipality financial year of services starts on 1 July of the current year. Okay, so in this information, remember, whenever we get a question, we always read all the information first. Then it says that use the information above and table 2 below to answer the questions that follow. So we are paying attention. This is now the tariffs for 2017-2018 year and 2018 to 2019. In this case here, we've got the different blocks with the different totals, tariffs, the different total amounts, and we call this sort of a step tariff. So the more you use, the more you end up having to pay per unit. Then we have in this column over here, they give us the information in cents, excluding VAT for 2017 and 2018. Then on this side, they give you again the values in cents and then excluding VAT. Okay, so once you've read all the information that's provided, now we can go to the question. So question 1 says, determine the number of kilowatt hours in block 1 and block 2. So in other words, they want to know in block 1, how many units is actually in this? And in block 2, how many units is actually in this? Now, the way you're going to do this is you're just going to subtract the maximum from the minimum. So in the first block, you'll say the following. You're going to say, in block 1, 50 minus the 0, and that will give you 50 kilowatt hours. So in other words, the first 50 kilowatt hours is going to be this amount in 2017-2018 and this amount in 2018-2019. Right. Then they want to know so the block 1 and block 2. So block 2's answer will now be again 350. Please note, always take the maximum of the step above that when you are subtracting, right? So in this case, the maximum of block 1 is 50. So I say 350 minus that 50. Because sometimes it will start by saying, okay, from 0 to 50, and then the next one goes from 51 to 350, depending on how they give you the information. But the way that I teach it is that I always just use the maximums and subtract them from each other. So this maximum minus this maximum, because then it just makes it easier for you to figure out which values to use. So in this case now, in block 2, sorry, this is supposed to say block 2 here. In block 2, we have 350 minus 50, and in block 2, we now have 300 kilowatt hours. So we have now officially answered question 1. Right. Please note that that block must be 2. Okay, now the second question says, write the ratio of kilowatt hours of block 1 to block 2 in simplest form. So this question is asking for a ratio, which means your answer must be in a ratio. And the ratio questions always tell you that you have to give the answers in a specific order. So block 1 to block 2 means you have to put block 1's value first, and then you put block 2's value second. Right, so now we have the ratio 50:300. But they're asking it in a simplest form, so you're going to have to simplify this. And on your calculator, you'll just say 50 divided by 300, and then you'll get an answer of 1/6. And that means that the ratio, the simplified values is 1:6. And you will just always remember that if you get a fraction, the smallest number in the fraction must go under the smallest number of the original ratio. So if I have 1/6, I'm putting 1 under the 50, because in this original ratio, 50 is the smaller value, so 1 needs to be the smaller value. Okay, so that is your number 2. This is based on what is the ratio of kilowatt hours of block 1 to block 2 in simplest form. Right, next question. In May 2018, the family bought electricity for 600 Rand, including VAT. So what are the important things I'm paying attention here? I'm trying to see which tariffs is this actually include, because May 2018, if you notice in the information that's given, both of these blocks include 2018. But if you read the instructions carefully, you would note that it says that the municipality's financial year of services starts on 1 July, which means that these tariffs now start at 1 July 2018, and this is all before July 2018. So in this case, we have May 2018, which falls before July. So that's why we're going to use these units. Right. So they say that they bought 600 including VAT. So just going back to my explanation in the beginning, this is now prepaid electricity. Okay, so this means that I am buying electricity first to the value of 600, and then whatever amount of units that is, I then use it after it has been bought. So the first question now in this asks, for question 3, they ask you to calculate the VAT amount, right? So how do we calculate the VAT amount? We first calculate the value excluding VAT. So 600 now, guys, is how much we paid. But this value includes VAT. We want to find out what is just the VAT value. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find the value excluding VAT. So I'm taking the including VAT value, dividing it by 1.15, and I end up with 521.74. This is now the value before VAT was added. So if I have 600, which is after VAT, 521.74, which is before VAT, then obviously the VAT value is then the difference of these two values. And in this question, it is 78 Rand and 26 cents. So that is our VAT value in that 600 Rand. So when I bought 600 Rands electricity, 78.26 of that value went to the government as VAT. Okay, now let's go to B. Now the question asks, determine the number of kilowatt hours they received. So they're telling you now that this person bought kilowatt hours to the value of 521.74, because this is now the value excluding VAT. And all of our tariffs is excluding VAT. So essentially, if we look at what is the total that he actually bought, it's this 521.74. Now we need to figure out, using the step tariff system, how much kilowatt units this actually is. Okay. So I'm going to take you through this slowly. This is an extensive calculation. So hopefully it will make sense to you. So technically what we're doing is we're working back. We are trying to figure out how many units. So you're not trying to find out the price here. You are just trying to find out how much units. And you'll see in the last question, we then have a question where they tell you how many units and you have to calculate the payment. And that's why I chose this question, because that's essentially the only ways that they can ask this. They can either give you how much you pay and you have to work out how many units, or they give you the units and you have to calculate what is the payment. So in this first question at B now, we are calculating the units. So how many units did he get for 521.74? That is the question we're trying to answer. Right, so let's go through the step by step. Let's first look at block number 1. In block number 1, we have a value, right? We have the value in cents, okay? And I'm dividing this by 100 so that I can do all my values, all my calculations in rands. So I'm first going to convert the first 50 bracket, and we're going to convert that to rands. Now that I have the rand value now, I can say 50, because remember in the first question we worked out that the first block has 50 units. So 50 multiplied by the 0.9693 gives us 48.465 Rand. So this is for the first 50 units. This is how much he is being charged. Right, fine, fair enough. Now, in the second one, the second block, we calculate again what is the cost per unit, and that we divide by 100 because it's in cents, and now we end up with 1.1688. And now we say 300 multiplied by 1.1688. So These two values now tells us how much the first 350 units actually cost. And now let's see where that actually puts us. If I add these two values together, I get an answer of 399 and 105. Please note, guys, I am not rounding off any of these answers because I only round off my final answer. Right, so now I have 399.105, but I actually bought electricity to the value of 521.74. Right, so now I need to figure out how much, right, units was bought in block 3. Okay, so we know that the 350 units cost us 399 and 105 cents. But it's not the full 521.74. So the balance, 521.74 minus 399.105. So how much we paid minus the cost of the first 350 units is 122.635. In other words, this is how much we spent in block 3. This was the cost in block 3. Because this was block 1, this was block 2, and then I worked out, okay, how much is left? And this was what was left. And so this is block 3. And now I need to figure out, okay, so if I paid this in block 3, how much units was that actually? Okay, so again, I'm going to take the third one's cents value and convert it to rands. And now I'm going to say that answer here, which is how much we spent in block 3, divided by the tariff for each unit in block 3, and that will tell me how many units I bought in block 3. So this is essentially how much units I bought in block 3. So this 50 is how much I got in block 1. This 300 is how much I got in block 2. And 98.17 is how much I got in block 3, because those three values together will give me a total of 521.74. So now I'm actually able to calculate how many units that is. So it's the 50 in the first block, the 300 in the second block, and the 98.17 in the third block, to give us a total kilowatt hour of 448.17, which rounded off is 448 kilowatt hours. So that is how we work backward. That is how we have now calculated exactly how many units 600 Rand has bought me. Now remember that this value is actually only the 521.74, and then I got that amount of units, but then the VAT was added, and that's how I got the rounded off, or the whole value of 600. Okay, so essentially this is how you work when you have the cost and now you want to work back to find out the unit. You will literally go to each block, calculate how much it is, and then at the point where you see, okay, that's how much money I've spent, and you've gotten to the block where there's like some left over, then you just take whatever is left over and divide it by the unit cost per kilowatt hour in that specific block. Okay, now this is a heavy question. This does require you to sort of think a little bit. So if you have to, rewind the video, replay it for yourself over and over and over until you really grasp this. I will also recommend that you pause the video just where the question paper shows and you try and now recreate this calculation that I've shown you and see if you are able to do it on your own. Okay, now let's work the last question. So the last question is number 4 here. It says, in May 2019, Mr. Van Zyle's family consumed 503 kilowatt hours of electricity. Calculate the total amount, including VAT, that this family will pay. So now notice the difference. This question is telling us how many units, and we have to do the calculation. on how many units, how much 503 units will actually cost. Okay, so firstly, we're going to pay attention. What units am I using? So this is in May 2019, which means we are looking at these values here. Okay, so that's the values we're going to use in this calculation. So again, we start by block 1. We say 50 minus 0. That gives us a total of 50 units. And the price there now is 1.0468 Rand, because I take that value divided by 100 to give me the Rand value. Okay, then I say, okay, 50 multiplied by the cost per unit in Rand, gives me 52 Rand and 34 cents. So the first 50 electricity units cost 52 Rand and 34. Then in the next interval, we have 350 minus the maximum of the previous step. And this now gives us a tariff of 1.2653 if we convert it to rands. And then we say, okay, we are going to say the 300 now multiplied by that tariff will give us 379 and 59 cents. So in other words, the next 300 units cost us 379.59. Now we need to figure out how much the balance is going to cost. Now I mark this next one in black because this last one will always have whatever the amount is in the question. So the question asks for 503 and 503 is actually going to fall in block 3. So if you just think about it, guys, 0 to 50, 50 to 350, if I use 503, it falls in the third block. So I need to do the calculation in the third block, but I didn't use all of the electricity in the third block. I only used the difference between the 503, which is what I had, and the 350, which I already paid in the first, in the block before that. So in the last block, the last step will always be your question minus the previous step's maximum. Okay, what you are trying to find. This 503 over here. Okay, so that will then give us, sorry, I don't know why this only showed up now. That is for the next calculation. Okay, so here we see, we've got 503 minus 350, and this is the tariff now there. So I say 153 is how much we used in block 3, okay? And then that times that price. So essentially, guys, this is the 50 in the first block, 300 in the second block, 153 in the third block. And these values in total gives me the total of 503, which is how much we used. We calculate the cost of each of these now, and I end up with 368.3423. Right? So that is for everything, but now these values in the table are excluding VAT. So we have to still include the VAT. So I write this value and I add the VAT percentage. I add the 15%, and my total value then will be 734.09. So in other words, for his 503 kilowatt hours of electricity, we end up with we have to pay 734.09. So this is just a slightly different calculation based on the previous question we did, because here they're asking now, you have the amount of units, how much is it going to cost, including VAT? All right, so I see this is the last question, so this must have been a mistake here that I've included. So please just ignore this. And essentially, that is how we handle electricity tariff questions. The one working backward if we need to find the kilowatt hours, and the other one working forward when we have to find the cost. Okie dokes, there's that video. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you have any questions, you can add it in the comment section below, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for making it to this point of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.